Hey guys, welcome back. This is Project Life week 20 and I'm going to do something a little bit different this week. A few weeks ago I grabbed a grab bag from Rosie Studios, and in that grab bag was this pack of arabesque pocket life cards. I love them. They're gorgeous. The colors are pretty. It's a line I really loved. But as you can see here, all of these cards have rounded corners. Now, I gave up on rounded corners in my Project Life album several years ago, and the finicky designer in me just will not let me mix rounded corners with square corners. So I did end up getting rid of most of my collection of rounded corner cards. However, I loved these ones and I really did want to find a way to use them. So that's what I'm challenging myself today. I want to create a spread in Project Life using these rounded corner cards, but creating a square layout with them. So I started by going through the 4x6s and just laying out the cards that I wanted to use. At this point, I don't really know how I'm going to convert them to square corners. I just wanted to pull out the ones that I really liked the look of and are going to work with my layout. And now I'm basically doing the exact same thing with the 3x4 cards, except I'm also going through them looking for elements that I could use on the card rather than just the whole card. Now the fun thing about these packs is that the 3x4 cards, they're double-sided, but there are 2 of each card, so you can actually get every single card that's in the pack. The 4x6s are a little bit different, which was kind of a bummer, because the first way I want to use my 4x6 card here and make it square corners is just to chop a 3x4 straight out of the middle of it. That does mean though I can't use the other side of it, so that's the downside of this pack, but that was a really easy way to get rid of those rounded corners. Now I'm doing basically the same thing with this 3x4. I have to trim about 1/4 of an inch off each side to create those square edges and get rid of the rounded corners, which obviously makes it not 3x4 anymore. It's considerably smaller. So I am just going to back this onto this 4x6 card, and again just chopping the middle out of there. But that's okay, I don't mind, it's green, I don't mind covering up all that green. I am using the green purposefully. There are other elements on my page, including my big photo of grass down there that are green, so the green works really nicely on this layout. I just don't need a whole 3x4 card of it, so that worked out well. Because I had trimmed down that wood grain piece considerably smaller, my photo did not fit on there. It was too large, so I was able to trim the photo down without having to reprint it, but it did mean I lost those white borders on there, so I've just mounted the card on some the photo on some white cardstock and then adhered that down. I did want to add some sort of texture and interest to that card too, so I ran it through my sewing machine. The sewing machine had black thread in it. That wasn't a design choice, it's just what was in my sewing machine, but it works out fine because there are plenty of sort of black elements on this page. So another fun way to use these 3x4 cards is to create embellishments with them. There's lots of fun like sentiments and like icons on there, and so that's what I did for the rest of that 3x4 card. I just trimmed out the sentiment and made like tiny word stickers. Well, not really stickers, embellishments. I had to glue them on, but that fills in the bottom of that card. Now for this 4x6 card, all I did was trim off each end, the short ends of the card, to give me my straight corners. And I am going to trim a little bit more off just so that it fits nicely with my photo. And what I did was adhere just a piece of scrap white card in behind there so that I can then trim that card back down to 4x6. Now to make that sort of gap, that white strip at the end, look a little bit more purposeful, I'm going to use one of the scrap pieces that I've already cut apart and just trim out as much of the color that I can. So I trimmed off the rounded corners and then trimmed off the remaining sentiment, and it gives me this little piece of pattern paper that I can stick down right next to the card end. And having those 3 different patterns and colors, it just makes it look a little bit more purposeful. So I'm going back to this 3x4 that I trimmed down, and I just flipped it round. It was going to be a little bit top heavy, having that beautiful floral pattern and my photo at the top. So all I did was invert that. The floral's now at the bottom, I get to see more of it, and my photo sits nicely in the blank space. So the 4x6 card for my title card, I'm going to do almost the exact same thing as I did down the bottom, except this time I'm trimming top and bottom. So I trimmed the rounded corners from the top and bottom of the card just to give me those square edges, and then I'm going to adhere that onto another piece of scrap card, which incidentally also had rounded corners, so I just trimmed the bottom of that off, and that gives me my 4x6 card. It ties in really nicely with that one down the bottom because I have those 3 patterns. The 2 of the patterns were already printed on the first 4x6 card, so I don't actually have to add anything else to that. This 3x4 card, I decided to trim it out and use it as a journaling spot for my journaling this week. My bottom photo here is of the frost, our first really heavy frost this winter, which is a beautiful texture. I don't need a whole 4x6 of it, so I have no problem covering some of that up with my journaling. I just fussy cut that out of the card, but the left edge here, it was kind of that torn notebook paper, which would have been a real pain for fussy cutting. What I decided to do was use a little hole punch. It almost fits the size of the printed holes, not quite, but almost enough to disguise it anyway. And then I'm just using my scissors to chop out the rest of that pattern, and it was a super easy way to fussy cut that journaling spot. Now I just ran that straight through my typewriter. It was a little bit troublesome. I should have stuck it onto some scrap paper, but I did manage to get it all the way through. And I'm just going to adhere that onto the photo with a little bit of glue, and then do the same thing before, is add a little bit of texture with my sewing machine. I'm just trimming off the bottom of there, and then I decided, since I'd already added 2 spots with that sewing, the black thread texture, I'm going to add a third, and I decided to do it as sort of a frame around my photo down here. I'm going to go back to the original pile of 3x4 cards that I pulled out and just see whether there's any other like sentiments and phrases or icons that I could trim out and use on this spread. And the first card I pulled out had both, so I'm going to be very careful and trim out this little sentiment, which is kind of jammed into the middle of the card, and I'm going to use that down the bottom here. And then I really loved those little camera icons. They were really cute, so I decided to trim out a blue one. There was blue and green on that card, but I've got a lot of green going on already, so I trimmed out the blue one. There's a few spots of blue on my spread too, so it kind of draws those out of the photos. I'm not committing to anything just yet. I'm just kind of placing them down like I would any ordinary die cut. And then I found this other card that has this, it's quite a long sentiment on it. I'm going to trim these into little word strips and then reassemble them on top of my photo. So they kind of went vertically on the card, and I've got a horizontal photo, so I want to split it into maybe 2 or 3 lines and just run them across my photo. They don't take up too much room, and they kind of don't take too much attention away from the photo because they are coordinating sort of color wise with the photo, and so I really like those as just a real element that you kind of don't notice at first until you're actually looking for them. I'm just going to really quickly glue those on with a little bit of a glue pen, which is definitely running out of glue, and I did remember to go and pick up my tweezers to make this process just a little bit easier. And I decided to do the same sort of thing on the photo of me and Lil. I noticed that on the back of that card there were another couple of words on there, so I'm trimming out the larger one that says happy, but it's grey, and so it kind of gets lost on that black and white pattern. So I decided just to mount it onto some of the pink colour. Just gives it a tiny little border, it helps it stand out from the background, plus it ties in the other couple of places that I've got pink on my spread. Now I realize that I haven't actually stuck my little camera down yet, so I'm just going to commit and adhere that. And then I went back through my cards again, just making sure that I hadn't missed anything or that there weren't any other little pieces that I wanted to add on here. And the other thing that I have pulled out is just a few things from my stash. Now some of the stuff did come out of the same grab bag, so I've got a couple of different sets of letter stickers here. Both of them are silver glitter, which I really liked with this collection. I've also got some gemstones, and then I did pull out some tiny word stickers that I obviously don't end up using because I found enough kind of little sentiments and phrases within those cards, but I did pull out a set of labels, and they were silver too, so I chose them to match these silver glitter alphas. I'm pretty sure they're old Studio Calico ones, and I'm just going to use them. I pulled that out so I could use it on my title card here. Now I got really lucky. I wasn't putting any of these alphas down too hard, but I got really lucky that the words week 20 worked perfectly across that width of that 4x6 card. Sorry, there were no numbers on that sheet, so I was hoping that that would work. I did have to use a capital E at one point, and so I added a capital T in there as well, just to kind of make it look a little bit more purposeful. So I've added the label like I said, and then I wanted to add a little bit more color, so I am going to add just a few of these little gemstones. They're not something I would normally put on a Project Life spread, but I really did need a little bit of color, and the pink seemed perfect. It just pulls in some of the other colors on the spread. Now those labels sort of had a recollection that they kind of have quite a slick surface, so I decided to grab some StazOn ink just to make sure that they're actually stamped onto the label, and I'm glad I did in the end because it worked perfectly. I just have to spend a little bit of time cleaning off the stamp because it is getting very dark every time I use these StazOn ink with it. I figured since I had added some of those gemstones to the top, I might as well sprinkle a few down here as well. Again, on that kind of, it's a backgroundy kind of photo. They stand out really nicely. They're not covering anything up, and it just kind of ties it all together. Now I've got one card left to work on, really. I've got that tiny word strip, which I'm going to commit to. I did want to add the word hello in there, so I'm going to use the other set of alphas that I had pulled out of that grab bag. Again, they're the silver glitter, so it is super hard for you to see it here on the camera, but I'm going to add them in anyway. They're definitely easier to see in real life. But I had a Zoom call with some of my patrons, so I really wanted to add the word hello on there because it was the first time we had technically met. Now, since I had two things down there, I've got that kind of strip and the words hello, I kind of want to add a third element, and I really liked the way that these florals were placed on the corners of the cards. Obviously I could have. I decided not to use the actual corner because of the roundedness. So what I've just done is trimmed that all out. It's still got flat sides on like two edges of it, so I can just place that on the corner. It perfectly covers up just the edge of the hello and the tiny word strip, and it kind of makes it look like it's all just one kind of cluster. Now I found one more sentiment that I thought would be perfect on my crafting photo. It was from a whole card though, and I know I had already trimmed that card out, so I went and found the original one, just trimmed it out. Again, I'm going to add this little pinkness in here, which I really love, and I'm just going to simply glue that onto the photo and then call my spread all done. This was quite a fun challenge, and I haven't had to use rounded cards for a very long time, but I'm glad that I did because this is a really gorgeous collection. I will link the Rosie Studio store for you down below, but if you're from New Zealand, you can pick up a grab bag for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Bye guys.